I remember feeling content with my life, earning a decent income and managing well, until one day I was taken aback. My credit card company contacted me to inform me of a $91,000 charge. I was utterly shocked because I didn't recognize this transaction. Immediately, I halted the payment. Around the same time, my husband Jason, who was traveling, called me numerous times. Despite the chaos, I took control of the situation. At 31, I'm now a manager at a company, and Jason, who is also 31 and my college sweetheart, and I have been married for 2 years. While many of our friends chose to leave their jobs post-marriage, I continued in my role. I earn more than Jason, which sometimes worries me about our future, especially considering the stability of his income. We maintain our financial independence, we each manage our own money, and equally share household expenses. This arrangement allows me the freedom to spend my leftover income as I see fit, which usually doesn't bother me since we are both working and our life together is going smoothly. However, just recently, while on a train ride home, I realized I might have overspent a bit as I glanced over a debit alert on my phone. I thought about checking for any unused subscriptions that might still be charging me, but that idea quickly vanished as I struggled to remember the password to my credit card portal. Finding motivation to sort this out is tough, and reaching the help center is a challenge. They operate from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays, exactly when most working people can't call. The long wait times during lunch hours don't help either. Yet, I'm reassured slightly by knowing that if there's a significant issue, like a charge over $40,000, the call center will reach out to me. This trust in the system makes me a bit complacent about contacting them myself. Meanwhile, online shopping serves as a brief escape from these and other work-related stresses. When I opened the package that had just been delivered, I briefly felt a surge of excitement. However, this feeling quickly dissipated as soon as I entered our living room. The scene inside shifted my mood from good to bad instantly. Socks scattered on the floor, empty cans on the table, and a random phone and sweater tossed carelessly on the couch. Yes, that was my husband lounging in a sweatshirt, seemingly oblivious to the mess. My husband has a habit of not cleaning up after himself, which often feels like he's purposely adding to the chaos at home. I pointed my phone at the couch and half-jokingly, half-exasperatedly said, "Hey, socks and empty cans, that's what I come home to? It's not that hard to clean up a bit or even make dinner if you're home before me." In response, he coolly remarked, "If you get home early, why don't you clean the house? Don't be so mad about it." This stung a bit. "I'm tired too when I get home," I retorted, trying to keep my tone light yet firm. "If you're not going to help clean, maybe you should consider whether you prefer working or doing chores." "Please, just drop it," he replied, not once but twice, signaling his annoyance without really feeling the weight of my words. I shot him a stern look, but he was too engrossed in his phone to notice my frustration. It felt unjust that I was shouldering a heavier load of chores and work. Was I being unreasonable? I wasn't sure, but I feared my confrontation might push him to be even more indifferent to our home's upkeep. Surprisingly, something shifted after our exchange. My husband started coming home late, even on days I arrived early. It seemed he had decided to put in extra hours at work. Perhaps, in his way, he was making an effort to address our imbalance. I was in a particularly good mood that day, so I threw myself into my chores with more energy than usual. My husband Jason has been really busy lately, which meant the housekeeping duties had mostly fallen to me. I hadn't really thought much about it until I found myself cleaning his room, which he hadn't tidied up in quite some time. As I entered his room, it was just as I expected. Empty bottles and cans were strewn everywhere, even on the bed. Amid the clutter, something caught my eye. There was a package, elegantly wrapped in gift paper, lying unobtrusively. Peering closer, I recognized the branding. It was from my favorite store. A flicker of excitement passed through me as I realized my birthday was just around the corner. Could this be a surprise gift from Jason? Despite my curiosity, I decided to respect the surprise. pretending I hadn't seen anything and leaving the package untouched. However, the gift never appeared as my birthday arrived and the day progressed. I casually asked Jason, "Do you know today's day?" "Oh, right, it's your birthday," he replied nonchalantly. "Did you forget?" I pressed, hoping for a hint of the surprise I had seen earlier. "No, I remember," he responded. "Aren't you happy with what I gave you last year? You know you're old enough not to need constant surprises." His words, so casually delivered, stung me. He went back to his room, leaving me puzzled and hurt. That mysterious box had sparked a glimmer of hope, but now it just made me uneasy. Suddenly, he announced a new twist. "I've got to go on a work trip abroad next week." This was unexpected. "A business trip to another country?" I repeated, incredulous. "Since when does your job involve international travel? You've never even been on a business trip outside the state." He simply replied, "They just gave me this assignment." The whole situation felt increasingly strange. What was really going on? I had been feeling quite accomplished lately, believing I deserved some recognition. "You should trust me," my husband had said, but his words were hard to take seriously after I'd discovered a mysterious gift-wrapped box in his room. On the day he left for his so-called business trip after waving him off in the early morning, my curiosity got the better of me. I searched under the bed where I'd seen the box, but it was gone. Doubt gnawed at me. This wasn't just a regular business trip, was it? With this uneasy thought, I dragged myself to work, but I was hardly in a state to focus. Several times, my hands just stopped moving, my mind replaying the recent events over and over. "Hey, are you okay? You seem out of it today," a coworker inquired. "Oh yeah, I just didn't get enough sleep," I replied, trying to brush it off with a lighthearted excuse. Just then, my phone vibrated sharply. A strange number flashed on the screen. Normally, I would ignore such calls, but something inside me urged me to answer it this time. "Excuse me, I need to take this," I said, stepping outside to talk. It was the credit card company's call center on the line. As I listened, a flurry of thoughts raced through my mind about my husband, our recent issues, the necessity of sharing my password, and then the representative's words cut through my confusion. "This is from our debt protection service. It seems there has been a charge exceeding $40,000 on your account," the voice explained calmly. I was stunned by the information, a mix of disbelief and concern overwhelming me. What on earth was going on? The conversation with the operator intensified when she dropped another bombshell. Yes, there was a charge for $91,000. "That's impossible! Wait a second!" I gasped, my heart racing. I dashed back to my desk, rifling through my wallet, only to find that my credit card was missing. "That's the card I meant to have with me," the operator clarified. "Pardon me, can you please halt that transaction?" I asked urgently, phone pressed tightly against my ear. "Yes, it's still pending, so we can stop it," she assured me, and a wave of relief washed over me. "And please, can you handle the stolen card issue immediately? I don't have it with me," I added. "Yes, sir, I'll take care of it right away," she responded. Even though the situation was partially resolved, the adrenaline didn't stop pumping through my veins. I hung up, my heart still pounding. "I'm sorry, I'm not in the right state to work. I need to leave early. It seems my credit card was stolen and almost misused, and I have a lot to sort out," I explained to my boss, who understood and allowed me to leave. I caught the train quickly, and as I checked my phone, I saw countless missed calls from my husband. It felt as though he was trying to confess something. I rushed home, threw off my shoes, dropped my bag, and went straight to my husband's office. His desk was cluttered, but what caught my eye was his search history, luxury cruises, and travel plans for two. These were definitely not work-related. I hadn't been invited to any such event. The so-called business trip was clearly a cover for something else. My heart sank as I realized the implications. Scrolling through my old emails for any clues, I noticed a name that stood out. Billy. "What the heck is this?" I muttered, my anger rising. I wanted to slam the keyboard in frustration, but instead, I forced myself to look for concrete proof of whatever was going on. My phone kept ringing incessantly as I pieced everything together. "Oh my God, just stop," I groaned, overwhelmed by the betrayal and chaos unfolding before me. In the turmoil, I decided to use the password given by the call center to check my credit card transaction history. I logged into my account and began scrolling through the records, my disbelief growing with each entry. There it was, a transaction for an expensive handbag brand that caught my eye. The pieces suddenly clicked. Jason had used my credit card to indulge his mistress, Olivia, and even funded a supposed business trip abroad. The realization left me stunned. I had ignored several calls, but now, gathering all my courage, I answered the phone. "You finally picked up after I tried so many times," my husband said, his voice anxious. He immediately started talking about the credit card. "Who's the card for?" I asked pointedly. He hesitated before replying. "You mean, whose card?" "Well, it's easier to use a card than cash abroad, especially on work trips." "Work trips? Or do you mean the luxury cruise and the getaway with Olivia?" I countered sharply. He tried to deflect. "Why are you asking about the cruise? That was for business. Entertainment. A fun time, Olivia. And the designer bag? Was Olivia happy with it? Are you seriously trying to justify this by pretending you don't know what's going on?" I pushed further, my voice steady but filled with pain. My husband faltered, the reality of the confrontation setting in. I understand, he repeated, his voice tinged with desperation as he attempted to grasp at excuses. "I know everything," I stated clearly. "You tried to spend $91,000 on a luxury cruise and a vacation package for couples. You've been using my credit card to lavish Olivia with gifts." After a pause, he finally admitted, "I'm sorry I cheated. I'm sorry, but I can't come home until you reactivate the credit card." His plea hung in the air, absurd and almost pitiful. "Do you really think an apology and admission are enough to make all of this go away?" I asked, the weight of his betrayal pressing down on me. The conversation had shifted irrevocably from mundane marital grievances to a stark, painful reckoning. Feeling utterly betrayed, I told my husband, "Please spend the rest of your life at your resort," and then hung up the phone before he could respond. Almost immediately, my phone started buzzing nonstop. The incessant ringing drove me to the edge, prompting me to turn off the device to escape the noise. Soon after, an email notification popped up, informing me that my husband's return flight was scheduled for noon 5 days later. I seized this window of opportunity to set my affairs in order, deciding to resolve everything before he could set foot back home. The next day, as part of my plan, I began clearing out all his belongings from our house. On the second day, I gathered the courage to tell my in-laws about everything that had happened, showing them the proof of his infidelity and misuse of our finances. They were shocked and deeply apologetic. By the end of our conversation, they agreed to support me in getting a divorce, promised to ensure I would receive $2 million in alimony, and vowed to recover the funds my husband had frivolously spent. As the day of my husband's return approached, I received a call in the early evening from my in-laws, confirming that they had safely filed the divorce papers. Surprisingly, my soon-to-be ex-husband had only taken a credit card with him, leaving the rest of our finances untouched. The woman he was with, however, had given him $91,000. Enraged by the unfolding events, she changed her flight, departing for Singapore before him without his knowledge. I wondered why she hadn't just taken his plane ticket and visa and left him stranded. While pondering this, I learned from my in-laws that when my ex-husband returned to Singapore, he found the house empty and his connection to me severed, his calls going straight to voicemail. In a desperate attempt to find refuge, he went to my in-laws' house, where he faced significant repercussions for his actions. After everything that had unfolded, the final step was filing the divorce papers. My ex-husband had gotten himself into deeper trouble, and it didn't stop with our separation. The woman he had been seeing was now demanding that he return the $91,000 she had given him. I heard from my in-laws that after he repaid the money, They imposed strict conditions on him, almost as if he were back in high school. He was essentially under house arrest with a 15-hour curfew and his every move being monitored by his own family, ensuring he paid off all the money he owed. In the midst of all this, I took legal action myself, filing a $15,000 claim against the other woman involved in the affair. With help from my in-laws, I gathered the necessary information to go after her financially, and once I did, it felt like the last piece of this painful puzzle was finally falling into place. It was a long and exhausting process, but when the claim went through, I felt a sense of closure. The legal side of things had been resolved, and it was time for me to focus on moving forward. When I returned to work the next day, my colleagues and bosses welcomed me back with surprising warmth and concern. Many of them had heard about my situation, and their kindness was palpable. "Hey, are you okay? If you want to talk about anything, I'm here," one of my colleagues offered gently. It was comforting to know I wasn't alone. I replied with a grateful smile, "Thank you, I'm doing all right. Just trying to get back into the swing of things. Maybe we can grab a drink after work? I'd appreciate the company." It felt good to make plans and to look forward to simple pleasures like a night out with friends. That evening, as we gathered at a local bar, the camaraderie felt soothing. We shared stories and laughs, and although the shadow of recent events lingered, it was overshadowed by the immediate warmth of friendly faces. As I sipped my beer, the bitterness of the past few months seemed to dissolve slightly with each sip. I poured out my heart about the ordeal, and my colleagues listened empathetically. "I'm just looking forward to putting all of this behind me," I confessed as the evening wound down. "I think I'm ready to move forward, to focus on the positives that the future holds." They raised their glasses to that, a silent acknowledgement of my resilience. "To new beginnings," they echoed. As I left the bar that night, a sense of closure mingled with newfound hope. The support of my work community had buoyed my spirits, and I felt a deep appreciation for their presence in my life. It was a reminder that even in the aftermath of betrayal and heartache, the kindness of others could light the way forward. As I looked ahead, I felt a cautious optimism. It was true that the past could not be changed, but the future was still mine to shape. With the legal matters settled and my boundaries firmly redrawn, I was slowly rebuilding a sense of normalcy. The path ahead wouldn't be without its challenges, but I felt prepared to face them, bolstered by the support of friends and a renewed sense of self. Indeed, it seemed that better days were on the horizon.
"Hey, why is the house listed for sale?" my husband asked angrily over the phone. "Oh, because I decided to sell it," I replied calmly. "What the hell are you doing? This house belongs to me, doesn't it?" he yelled. "This is the house my father invested in for us. So it's registered in my name. As the owner, I have every right to sell it, don't I concluded. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You kept this quiet on purpose, didn't you?" "No, but since you got $1.45 million, why not go live happily with your new girlfriend?" I asked. "Ugh, well, since you already know, I don't mind giving you some of the money," he sneered into the phone. But my husband still didn't know this wasn't the worst surprise waiting for him. My name is Eleanor, a 55-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Jaden for 27 years. My daughter Lily is 26 years old and just married last year. She has a really strong bond with her husband Beau, and she always talks about her love life whenever she comes over. It makes me smile when I see my daughter talking happily, and I'm relieved that her marriage is going well. "I'm glad you look happy, Lily," I said with a smile. "Mom, are you okay? Isn't it hard to look after Grandpa?" Lily asked with concern. "Oh, I've been doing it for years now, and I'm used to it," I assured her. "Besides, he is going to be hospitalized soon, so I won't have to do that anymore." "Is he?" "It's unfortunate that he is getting worse," Lily replied thoughtfully. "But I'm a little relieved that your burden will be eased. I shouldn't say things like this, though." "Thank you for worrying about me, Lily," I said warmly. "If you ever need assistance, I'm always here for you." "Beau is happy with it," Lily said with a laugh. "Well, that's great to hear," I said. But I'm still well enough. I won't need assistance for another 30 years. That's true, my daughter agreed. Thank you, though. That's very kind of you. Enjoy your new married life with Beau, I continued. Okay, thanks, Mom, Lily said with a smile. I am very grateful that my daughter shows up regularly like this. To be honest, I'm struggling to provide care for him every day, and it's tough. We started living with my husband's parents about 5 years ago. Actually, they wanted to live together much earlier, but I said it was impossible until my daughter graduated from uni and started living on her own. So I asked them to wait. My husband complained about it, but for me, my daughter was more important, and I wanted her to be able to concentrate on her studies without any worries. I wouldn't say that my in-laws are a nuisance, but suddenly having 2 more people to live with would be confusing for a child. Well, the truth is, I wasn't ready for it yet myself. In fact, a year after we started living together, my mother-in-law got a leg and back problem. Then she ended up needing care. My life as a carer began. Up until then, I had been working part-time to cover my daughter's tuition and our retirement. But I had to stop and became a full-time housewife, caring for my in-laws all day. Fortunately, my in-laws weren't the kind of people who bullied their daughter-in-law, so I wasn't told or done anything terrible by them. But it was still tough, and I was exhausted both mentally and physically every day. Besides, my father-in-law also became ill and needed care, followed by my mother-in-law. And the hardest part was that my husband left everything to me. You're a full-time housewife, Jaden said dismissively. It's your job to take care of them. Do it well. Don't cause trouble for my parents. Saying that, he left all the care to me. Of course, he didn't do any housework for me. He wants to say that he earns money working for a company, and that is enough for him. Ideally, my husband, who is their biological child, should be taking care of his own parents. However, even if I said that, my husband would not listen to me. If I told him that, it would obviously lead to a fight. So I put up with it and continued to give them care. Although life as a carer was tough, I got used to it. After a year or 2, things became a little less overwhelmingly difficult. Then, 2 years after I started living with them, my mother-in-law passed away due to illness. After that, I only had to care for my father-in-law, which lightened my burden a bit. Now, I'm just going through the motions, staying married and continuing to care for him. That's about it. It will end soon because my father-in-law is going to be hospitalized. Just because the caregiving is over doesn't mean I'll get any rewards, or that my income will increase either. All I feel now is a sense of finally letting myself go and a small sense of accomplishment. However, I've been worried lately because my husband's behavior has become increasingly overbearing. Up until now, he left me to handle all the housework and care for the family, and he's always been bossy. But he had never said such cruel things that attacked my very identity. One day, Jaden sneered, "You really have an unfortunate face. Just being around you seems to bring my luck down. Get out of my sight when I eat." This is how my husband treats me. He makes me cook dinner, and then, when it's time to serve it, he tells me to leave the living room. Although he has behaved badly in the past, still it was never this unreasonable. Recently, he's been very busy with work, putting in overtime constantly and coming home late at night. He also spends his weekends bar hopping, so he's rarely home. However, on Mondays and Tuesdays, for the first half of the week, he often finishes work on time and comes home straight after. It's at those times that my husband gets arrogant with me and stresses me out. "Hey, why haven't the programs been recorded?" Jaden shouted. "Oh, I was recording the drama I watch and—" I began. "Don't mess around," he cut me off. "There's a program I want to watch at this time on this day. Cancel your recording." What?" I asked hesitantly. "Do you have a problem? Who do you think is paying for this TV stand and the electricity to watch TV?" my husband asked angrily. "Okay, I'll cancel my recording," I replied quietly. "Come on, quick, you idiot," he snapped. "You're always so retarded like that. You're an old bat and can barely do housework. You're such cocky shit. It's just awful. Why do I have to be told such things? I took care of my in-laws, cooked meals every day, and even made my husband's lunch. But there is no gratitude for that, and I am mentally overwhelmed by being told such abusive words face to face. I didn't think I could take it any longer if it became terrible like this. I feel stifled just having my husband in the house with me. That's why I don't want to stay at home on weekends, and I've been trying to visit my father-in-law since he was hospitalized. Hey, Eleanor, he greeted me. Dad, are you all right? I asked him. Thank you so much for everything, and I'm sorry, my father-in-law replied. What happened? It's so out of the blue, I said, feeling confused. I realized that I haven't been grateful enough until now. You have been working hard to take care of my wife and me. Jaden left everything to you and thought of us as a nuisance. I wonder what would have happened to us if you weren't there. I'm really grateful, he added sincerely. Dad. I wanted to reply, but he continued. I'm sure you must be having a very hard time right now. Hasn't he been acting differently towards you? He asked. How did you know that? I said, surprised. Well, I heard the conversation every now and then in the living room, even when I was in my room, and I can sort of guess when I saw your tired face, my father-in-law explained. Did I look that tired? I asked, ashamed. I'm really sorry for causing you trouble, he said. No, Dad. You haven't done anything wrong, I assured him. That's not true. Actually, he began, and then my father-in-law revealed a shocking truth. Suddenly, it all made sense. My husband's strange behavior, his coldness, his cruelty. Maybe he wanted to break up with me, and his awful actions were a way to push me into asking for a divorce first. But no, I wasn't going to let him get his way that easily. I made up my mind to stand my ground and fight back. From that moment on, I started preparing myself for what was to come. In the meantime, months later, my father-in-law became increasingly ill, and he breathed his last. Because I went to visit him every day, I was able to be present at his end. Even then, he told me how grateful he was to me, which made all my hard work worthwhile. My father-in-law's funeral took place afterwards. My husband left all the arrangements and preparations for the funeral to me, but he served as the chief mourner, and even shed tears in front of relatives to gain sympathy. I felt like I was drifting quickly away from him when I watched him like that. My husband had only taken advantage of me, and had only taken the good parts. I don't think I should be praised or anything, but I felt like he was taking all the credit, and it was very unpleasant. My daughter had also seen how I did all the care and housework, and he left it all to me, so she gave him a frosty look. Later, my father-in-law's funeral went well, and I was at home with my daughter and her husband. But my husband said he was going out for a while, got dressed, and went out somewhere. My daughter was disgusted with him. What the? It's strange to go out after his own father's funeral. Where on earth does he have to go? My daughter asked, pouting. He's probably going to see the other woman, I said. My daughter and her husband looked shocked. What the heck? The other woman? Is Dad having an affair? She asked, her eyes wide open. I showed her the evidence I'd collected from the detective agency. Wow, that's disgusting. Why is he having an affair? Lily asked, appalled. He seems to have misunderstood that he will receive a large amount of money. So he went to a nightclub and tried to hit on that girl, apparently, I explained. Thought he was going to get a lot of money, she repeated. Your grandpa talked about the inheritance money to him. He apparently didn't mention the debt, but only the money he would get, I said. Dad is really stupid, isn't he? My daughter sighed. Yes, he is. Of course, I'm not going to take on debt with him. I'm going to leave him before then, I declared. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'll cut ties with him too. I hope you can get divorced soon, Mom. If there's anything we can do, we'll help you with anything, she promised. Thank you, Lily, I said, encouraged by her support. A little while later, I was much more settled with sorting out my father-in-law's belongings and other funeral-related matters. Then, out of the blue, my husband told me he had something to say. What? What is it about? I asked, puzzled. I'm finally free from you now, he declared. What do you mean? I asked, confused. I'm divorcing you. I'm going to receive $1,450,000 of inheritance money, so I don't need you anymore, he said triumphantly. Inheritance money? I muttered in surprise. He grinned and had a triumphant look on his face. You know, you were a really useless wife. As you got older, I couldn't see you as a woman. I'm leaving you and I'm going to have a free life, Jaden sneered. How much had I done for my husband? He didn't thank me for that and simply tried to leave me. I knew it would happen, but when he said it like this, it made my blood boil. Okay, here are the divorce papers, I said, taking the papers from the drawer and presenting them to him. What the heck? You had them ready? How come? My husband stammered. Because you've been speaking to me so harshly lately. If you keep pushing me to my limit like this, I will seriously consider divorce, I replied firmly. Well, that's just fine, he said dismissively. He didn't bother to apologize when I told him I was hurt and took the divorce papers, starting to fill them in. Here you go. We are completely not related people. Register this quickly. Pack up your stuff and leave. I'll be living in a hotel until you leave because there's $1,450,000 coming in, he said, laughing loudly. He packed some clothes for a few days in his carry-on suitcase and left. He says he's living in a hotel, but I think he's going to the other woman's. It seemed like he was trying to proceed with the divorce, as if he wasn't having an affair. I registered the divorce papers to the city council immediately. After the divorce was finalized, I sold the house and quickly moved out. He still doesn't know about the secret hidden in my father-in-law's inheritance. When I informed my ex-husband that I had completely moved out, he laughed and said, "It took you so long, but it's okay because I can start a new life now." But a few days later, my husband called me. "Hey, why is the house for sale?" he asked angrily. "Oh, because I decided to sell it," I replied. "What the heck are you doing? That house belongs to me, doesn't it?" he shouted. "What are you talking about?" I said calmly. "That is a house that my father contributed to for us around 20 years ago, so it is under my name. As the owner of the house, it's my personal choice to sell it, right?" I remarked. What? Jaden stammered, clearly shocked. He apparently had forgotten that fact. "That's bullshit," he snapped. "You kept quiet about it on purpose, didn't you?" "I didn't," I replied. "You just didn't ask me anything. I didn't think you would forget such an important thing. But since you received $1,450,000, why don't you live happily with your new girlfriend?" "What?" he exclaimed, stunned. "Oh, did you ever think I didn't know about it?" I continued. "I've already investigated the fact that you had an affair with a hostess and are trying to get married again. I have all the evidence I need, and I'll have you pay me compensation money through my lawyer," I concluded. "Ugh," he muttered. "Well, it doesn't matter if you knew or not. I don't care at all if I give you a small amount of money." He scoffed with a cold smirk. "Okay, that's good. Then the lawyer will contact you," I said, and hung up the phone. A little while later, my lawyer informed me that everything had been settled. Apparently, my ex-husband had been griping about the payment of compensation money. This was because he had already learned all about the gimmick of his father's will when communicating with the lawyer. My father-in-law did have assets of about $1,450,000, but he had more debts than that, so what was left to my ex-husband was a debt of about $85,000. And with the around $20,000 in compensation for me added to that, his debt is around $105,000. Far from becoming a millionaire, he ended up having a lot of debt. He couldn't afford to pay compensation in this situation, and he even got down on his knees and apologized to the lawyer. However, I told my lawyer, I won't stop demanding compensation no matter what. He can deal with it, even if it means garnishing his salary. So the lawyer didn't change the demand and told him, "You can take the case to court." In the end, he agreed to pay. By the way, when the girl he had an affair with found out that my ex-husband wasn't going to receive a large amount of money, she paid only the compensation and disappeared. He also tried to get help from his daughter and her husband, but she had already deleted his contact number and moved out, so he ended up not being able to count on her either. Currently, he is living in a shabby flat, just going back and forth between work and home, living a poor life and paying off his debts. Apparently, he got what he deserved. On the other hand, I initially stayed with my daughter and her husband, then bought an apartment with the money that the house was sold for. It is near the room where my daughter and her husband live, so I often go out for dinner and have tea with them. Also, since I'm still of working age, I started working at a supermarket close to my house. I've decided to start living my life to the fullest. First, I'm going to focus on earning money, and then I'll travel as much as my body allows.